The following reading was commissioned by Will I. Zinn. Old Enough for School, Old Enough to Rule, by Professor Donger. Shining Armor had felt bad when he left with his contingent of personally trained Imperial Guards ponies to compete in Equestria's annual war games, but Cadence had assured him that it was fine, and that he had to go show off the might of the Empire to the different royals that would be bringing their own guards to the games. He had wanted to bring Flurry, since she loved military history and tactics nearly as much as he did, but Cadence had reminded him that she was grounded for throwing a cult out of a second-story window at school. Even if Shining knew the cult deserved it, Flurry had been complaining about him bullying her because of her wings for months now. Regardless, Cadence was the disciplinarian of the two, and Shining knew he was wrapped around his daughter's hoof, so he didn't interfere with her punishment. Though he had snuck a few Battle Bludgeon 50K miniatures for her to paint in her spare time. Poor Flurry was trying to build up an army of Discord Marines to take on his own Celestial Marines. He couldn't berate her, really, even though he knew no one was perfect all the time, even his precious little filly. So what Cadence didn't know wouldn't hurt her. He shook his head and got his mind back on track. The competition went well. His guards' ponies had done him and the Empire proud with a first-place win, and he was on his way home to his wife and filly. As the train sped by and transitioned from the mountains of the frozen north into the basin that held the Crystal City, Shining couldn't help but smile at the sight of his beloved kingdom. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, which caused Lieutenant Flash Sentry to turn away from his own window and address him. "Happy to be back, sir?" Shining resisted the urge to let out an unprince-like snort, and replied, "More like I'm happy the kingdom is still standing. And what have I told you about calling me sir?" Flash just smiled and shook his head, before turning back to the window, leaving Shining to his thoughts. Shining had been gone for far too long. He just hoped that Flurry had behaved, and that Cadence hadn't had too rough of a time ruling on her own. After all, he loved his wife dearly. She was smart, no, brilliant, in her own ways when it came to matters of the heart and love. But when it came to the details of ruling a kingdom, she was completely lost. Cadence was great with ponies. She could give speeches, rally soldiers, and do the day-to-day public image stuff that was required of a nation's ruler, no sweat. She was an extrovert by nature, and she was right at home among crowds of ponies. Or in court, when she could just talk to some pony about their problems. She was awful when it came to the actual day-to-day maintenance and work that went into keeping a kingdom running, though, which was where Shining Armor came in. He had been the captain of Celestia's Royal Guard and knew how to micromanage. He knew how to rule a kingdom. After all, the Royal Guard didn't just exist in Canterlot, and he knew how to make sure things went smoothly with just about any type of operation. Cadence was the face of the Empire, the mouth that read the speeches, and the horn that signed the laws. But Shining Armor was the state's pony penning the speeches, writing the laws, and making sure that his wife understood the ramifications any changes would have on her ponies. As Shining looked out the window, though, he once again reaffirmed that, yes, his home was still standing, and no, Cadence hadn't burned it down on accident in his absence. And with that, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders, and he finally let himself relax on the final stretch of this trip. Shining should have known better than to believe his wife wouldn't somehow find a way to mess up. As he trudged away from the train station, Flash Sentry and his guards' ponies were busy keeping the civilians that had gathered to mob him with questions at bay. He couldn't help but feel his eyes start to twitch in what his mom called the "husband is sick of this bull" tick. Shining knew his mother had renamed it to the Twilight Sparkle later on, since Twilight would be the one who really went at it with the twitching, but he preferred the previous name. It just seemed to fit better. According to a random civilian who had tried to question him, his wife wasn't even in the Empire. Apparently she hadn't been since the day after he had left. Random ponies kept coming up to ask him where their princess had gone. None of them seemed all that frazzled, other than with the fact that Cadence wasn't in the Empire. Yet it was starting to grate on him as he let his eyes rove over the streets of the city. It was only after he started really scanning the ponies and homes before him that he truly began to notice something was even more amiss than he thought. Every pony had their manes done up like twilight sparkles. Every single one of them. Looking away from the strange ponies before him, he then noticed the giant, and he meant giant, swimming pool that took up a majority of where the Grand Plaza once stood. The crystal heart floated above the water as if nothing had changed. Turning to the ponies before him, he groaned and put the pieces together. Right, I'm going to get to the bottom of this and fix what I immediately can and get Cadence back. You all need to disperse and return to your normal lives now, he ordered with a glare, willing his eye to stop twitching to maintain the look. The ponies did as they were told, and he finally had a chance to breathe. Turning to the castle, he groaned again and stepped up to the giant door that led to the entrance hall, which was closed. Shining thought about just blowing it off its hinges to relieve some steam, but he wasn't his sister. So instead, he raised a hoof and knocked. A slot opened a little above Shining, and a pair of yellow eyes appeared in them. Without ceremony, a feminine voice asked, "Password?" causing Shining's eye to begin twitching again. "Dinky Doo, I swear to Celestia, if you don't open this door," he began, only to be cut off.
Sorry, Captain Prince, sir. No can do. Princess's orders. Every pony gets asked to provide the password. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
The now identified Dinky Doo stated, as if it was common sense. Why? He dreaded the answer. He had already surmised that his daughter was running things the moment he saw every pony's hairstyles, but she had never been so paranoid about ponies coming into the palace. Heck, she was probably more extroverted than Cadence was.
We don't want a repeat of the Great Vanilla War of 07, 08, 10, 12.
What war? That was literally yesterday. Shining stomped a hoof in exacerbation.
It was a quick war. You did train us all, after all, Sir Emperor Captain, sir.
Dinky tried flattery. Shining frowned as his previous attempts were proving not to be as effective. Okay, here's a password. Open the door, or you're on latrine duty for a month. By the shifting of her eyes, he knew that this threat was having an impact. But to his surprise, she stood strong.
That's the incorrect password,
she managed to stutter out. 6 months, he deadpanned. And no more of your mom's muffins from Ponyville when Starlight sends them. He heard her sharply inhale and knew in that moment that he had won. With a resigned close of her eyes, she let out the breath she had taken and looked at him.
Promise not to laugh.
With that, the slot closed, and the door slowly began to open. Shining raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Instead, he waited for the doors to open fully before he stepped inside. As he made his way in, he glanced to his left, where he knew Sergeant Dinky Doo would be standing at attention, and had to suppress a snicker as she, too, had the Twilight Sparkle haircut.
Captain,
she groaned, covering her face with her hooves.
It's so embarrassing. Every pony has to have this mane cut. It's the law. Stop laughing.
Shining finally got his snickers under control. Boy, was he glad Twilight ditched that haircut once she became High Princess, and dismissed Dinky, ordering her to tell every pony in the castle to go change their manes back. He'd have the law repealed after having a talk with his daughter. With that out of the way, he made for the throne room, where his daughter's voice could clearly be heard giving orders, along with the sound of a pen scratching away on paper. Stepping into the room, he quietly observed Flurry for a moment.
Look, I get the taxes are important, but why the hell are they so darn complicated? Daddy hasn't gotten to them yet in our lesson, so why can't we just put them on hold for now?
She grumbled to the scribe, who merely ticked at her. Your Highness, taxes are important. They're needed so that the kingdom can continue to provide for the common pony with services like roads, guards, and other important projects, like that pool out front.
Well, yeah, but why can't we just let the ponies do that stuff on their own? Why do we have to tax them? And more importantly, why do I have to figure out how to write said taxes? Can't we just, I don't know, delete the tax code?
Shining almost jumped in right then and there. Not his precious tax code. He'd finally balanced the budget and gotten taxes as low as he could before he left. Thankfully, the scribe had managed to cut off his daughter's line of thought. Absolutely not. And besides, you wouldn't be in this predicament if you hadn't raised the crown's expenditures so much. Your father's tax laws were very well thought out and should have been able to run without the crown's interference after they were signed into law. You just had to have your rutting swimming pool. He saw Flurry pout, and Shining knew it was time to step in. He put in a mental note to give the scribe a raise after he fixed everything, if for no other reason than saving his darling tax code. He's right, you know. Now tell me, Flurry, where's your mother? He took satisfaction in his daughter's jump of fright, and noted that the scribe merely smirked behind his paper. Ah, I see the prince has returned, so shall take my leave. A good day to you both. The scribe bowed and made his exit. Shining gave the retreating scribe a passing glance as he stepped into the throne room proper. He could have sworn he saw the pony wink at him. Nah. With a shake of his head, he dismissed the passing thought and turned back to his daughter with a frown. Again, Flurry, where's your mother? He could tell Flurry was starting to sweat. She was shifting on the throne uncomfortably and looking side to side, as if looking for an exit herself. Shining knew drastic measures would need to be taken to get her to talk. One, he began, and her twitching started to get worse, even going so far as to shake her head and glare defiantly at her father. Shining only frowned harder. Two. She opened her mouth to speak, but clicked it shut with a snap. Shining's patience was running thin, and he felt awful for having to threaten his daughter, but he needed to know where his wife was. He decided to give her one last olive branch. Don't make me get to 3, Flurry Heart. Flurry's eyes filled with tears, and just like with Dinky Doo, Shining knew that he had won, even though it was a joyless victory. Just as he had predicted, she ran down from the throne and hugged him while apologizing profusely. After a minute of this, and reassuring her that no, he wasn't that mad, and no, he wasn't going to take away her miniatures, he finally got an answer.
Mom's on vacation,
Flurry said through sniffles as she wiped her eyes with a huff. What? Was all that came out of Shining's mouth. That and the sound of a vase breaking because of his magic, which caused Flurry to jump.
Yeah. She left the day after you did.
She started, and then stopped once the tiles under her dad's feet started cracking from the pressure he was putting on them.
She, said that I was old enough to go to school on my own, and that you were super duper smart. And you were teaching me everything about how to rule and stuff, so why shouldn't I get some practical experience ruling a kingdom while she went and visited her old village? She said something about not visiting in almost 100 years or something.
Shining put a hoof up to his chest, took a deep breath, held it for 10 seconds, and then let it out. Calm, he told himself. Calm. It's not your daughter's fault. Let's transliterate the amount of dragon tongue our wife fed her and go from there. Cadence visited her hometown a week ago. It's a spa and vacation resort town off the coast of Luna Bay. It's been that way since a decade after she became a princess. She straight up lied to our daughter and ran out to go have a spa week. Shining felt his anger coming back, but he reined it in, for his daughter's sake.
Are you mad at me, Papa?
his daughter weakly asked, and Shining felt his heart break a little bit. With a sigh, he brought her into a one-armed hug and nuzzled her. No, I'm not mad at you, Flurry. I'm mad at Mama, and whenever she gets back, I'm going to give her a stern talking to. Shining reassured her, and he felt the tension leave his daughter as she returned the hug.
Okay.
Now, I need to know what all you did so I can fix it. So, what'd you do while I was gone? Family moment over. Back to business. Flurry sat on the floor with her back to her dad's chest as she began recounting everything that had happened over the week he had been gone.
Okay, so we dug that giant pool around the Crystal Heart, made everyone have Anti-Twilight's hair for Anti-Twilight Appreciation Day, that's today by the way, banned vanilla ice cream, and I was trying to abolish the income tax, but Scribe wouldn't let me.
Calling the Scribe by his job title instead of his name isn't very nice, sweetie.
His name is literally Scribe Scribbler, Papa.
Flurry deadpanned. Shining took note of that for later. Wait, what's this about abolishing the income tax?
Well, Ponies kept grumbling about income tax being unfair and too high, so I thought, why not just abolish it? And then I saw that it was supposed to be temporary anyway and tried to do something about it, and that's what you walked in on earlier.
Shining moved a hoof up to his face in exasperation. You can abolish the income tax when you're actually on the throne, but not before. It was then that the vanilla ice cream bit actually hit him, and he groaned. Wait, why would you ban vanilla ice cream? You know that's your mom's favorite flavor.
I know, that's why I did it.
She grumbled, and Shining sensed animosity in those words.
Stupid ponies don't get why, though. Tried to start a war over it.
Right. Maybe we'll keep that one on the books until her punishment is up, he conceded, ignoring his daughter's grumblings about an ice cream war for the moment. She was a Sparkle like he was, after all, and Sparkles were vindictive when wrong. Shining then brushed a hoof through her mane. Now, besides trying to murder my perfectly balanced tax code, digging a pool, sparking a war over ice cream, and creating Twilight Sparkle Appreciation Day, is there anything else I should know about? At this, Flurry suddenly looked a bit embarrassed, and began shifting on her hooves again. Shining frowned. Flurry? She sighed.
I may or may not have sent a couple million bits to Grok's workshop to get them to give the Chaos Lords and Discord Marines the update to the 9th edition that they deserve.
Shining snorted and just shook his head. Okay, fair enough, but you do know that if Uncle Spike finds out that you caused his Drakon overlords to get pushed back again, he's gonna be peeved, right? Once again, Flurry pouted and mumbled.
Well, maybe he should play an actual faction and not a bunch of sleepy robot space dragons.
Shining just laughed and nuzzled his daughter's cheek before standing up and taking the oversized crown from her head. All right, go to your room and paint your miniatures for a while. I'm gonna fix the country and wait for your mom to get back. Flurry got up to do just that, but hesitated a bit.
Am I in trouble?
Shining made a show of thinking for a moment before shaking his head. I think ruling a country unprepared for a week is punishment enough. And you didn't start any wars with Yakistan while I was gone, so no, you're not in any trouble. Not with me. Flurry smiled and was going to leave before she had an idea. With a smile, she turned and took the crown back with her magic.
Wait, Papa! Before you fix everything, what's Auntie Twilight's birthday? I want to get her something while I still have access to the treasury.
Shining Armor was about to tell her that she didn't really need access to the treasury to get Twilight a gift. That she could have just asked him and he'd get said gift for her, but then he remembered how Spike had felt, how happy he'd been when he was able to buy gifts for the ponies he cared about himself, back when they were foals and a drakeling, respectively. Oh, what the hey. he thought. What are a few bits out of the treasury? After all, it was for Twilight's birthday. Okay, fine. Her birthday's November 3rd. He smiled once more, and she quickly hugged him in response.
Thank you. I'll be right back, Papa.
With that, she teleported out of the room, and Shining just shook his head with a small laugh. It was 4 months later that High Princess Twilight Sparkle would receive a scroll from the Crystal Empire, signed by Best Princess Flurry Heart, officially asking for annexation by Anti-Twily the Great into Equestria. Twilight's shout of, "What?" could be heard halfway across the country.